All right. So before we begin with the continuation letter, everything's evolves. Nothing is looked at as just an isolated piece of information. I mean, as it comes in, yes, data point, but over time, larger patterns emerge. So before we continue with that letter, just like the first iteration where it was read to me, I want to offer some context. So it was a day or two ago, I found myself asking a simple question. So how do you communicate something when you're afraid or just believe that they won't understand at all? And so, the answer, I didn't get there with using my mind in the traditional sense. It was arrived at questions, positions, perspectives, trying to empathize. And so first I had to let go of the assumption that people couldn't understand. That was my own fear talking. The weaver, the mind, spinning stories about how it would land before it ever landed. Then I had to ask a better question. After all, that's what the gray path is about. That's what the gray path demands. That we always arrive at better questions. And so, that's what happened. How do people actually process information? And not just people in general, specifically the people that you want to communicate to. So how do they process information? And not just intellectually, but emotionally as well. How much processing of either of these things, intellectual and emotional processing, can they take before they need an exit? Also, what creates enough safety for curiosity to exist before any judgment takes over? Because judgment and defense happens before we've even thought about it, really. Curiosity, on the other hand, is much slower. It has to be given room to breathe. So most of us have only be conditioned to judge or be it defense, or even ask the subconscious question maybe of, what does this person expect me to say, or how do they expect me to act? If you aren't aware of your behavior, you find yourself just responding on autopilot. So the question that shaped everything that you're about to hear, and this isn't a response to a conversation I've already had, it's a continuation built from observation, watching patterns, noticing what seems to resonate, and trying to create a container where the ideas can land without needing immediate agreement. So that's the gray path in practice, not performance. Just watching what happens when you stop trying to control the outcome. So I'm going to step back now. I'm going to listen to that letter. You sit with it however you'd like. Feel free to think of it as a meditation of sorts. Try it with your own words. I have the toolkit. I have the methodology. And we're at phase 2, remember? The empirically driven framework methodology needs actual data. So, watch me process. And I'll note it. My sensations, facial expressions. Because I'm going to have to watch this back too. And that's how the data packet is submitted. To see if the systems and the gray path all hold coherence. So, this is an invitation. Everything that I'm presenting and have been presenting on this channel, although it wasn't explicit at first, and I don't even know if I knew it exactly at the beginning. It's always been leading up to an invitation.
Where the question went next. After sitting with the first reflection, something unexpected happened. The framework itself became the next calibration object. I wasn't merely reading the grey path anymore. I was watching myself respond to it. The podcast, the narration, the conversations, and the journals became a stable mirror. The words stayed the same while my responses continued to evolve. I realized the calibration wasn't limited to songs or isolated experiences. Anything sufficiently stable could become a reference point against which the observer could notice their own change. That realization clarified another distinction. The grey path is not attempting to eliminate the weaver. For a long time, I believed that my tendency toward pattern recognition and symbolic thinking was something that needed to be restrained or even surgically removed. But the conversations revealed that the problem was never the weaver itself. The problem was asking the weaver to carry a responsibility it was never designed to carry. The weaver is not reality. The weaver proposes possibilities. Its role is not to declare what is true, but to generate candidate explanations that can later be examined through observation, evidence, and reality contact. It changed everything. Creativity no longer needed to compete with discipline. Imagination no longer threatened evidence. Instead, they became partners with clearly defined responsibilities. The rat records. The weaver imagines. The steward governs. The latch commits provisionally. Reality remains the final authority. Another question emerged naturally from this structure. How do spirituality and evidence coexist? The answer was not to collapse one into the other, nor was it to reject either. Instead, experience began separating itself into layers. An event could first be described as observation. Its biological mechanisms could be explored through neuroscience and psychology. Its personal meaning could be explored through philosophy or spirituality. Its mystery could remain mystery without demanding immediate resolution. Each layer could exist honestly without pretending to be another. This became one of the quiet strengths of the framework. Nothing needed to be inflated. Nothing needed to be denied. Everything simply needed to be accurately classified. As the architecture matured, another realization surfaced. The grey path was never simply an epistemology. It was quietly becoming a relational discipline. The same habits that improve reasoning also improve relationships. Observation before accusation. Interpretation held provisionally. Humility before certainty. Revision before defensiveness. The realization that two things can be true at once became more than an intellectual principle. I can reject a person's behavior while still recognizing their humanity. I can establish firm boundaries without abandoning compassion. I can love someone without requiring my present interpretation of them to remain permanently correct. Those same principles began reflecting inward. The unconditional compassion I struggled to offer myself gradually expanded outward towards others, not because harmful behavior became acceptable, but because humanity became distinguishable from behavior. That distinction brought an unexpected form of peace. Perhaps the deepest realization arrived almost quietly. The original question had been, how do I stop fooling myself? That is no longer the central question. The grey path has slowly transformed that fear into something more constructive. The new question is, how do I build a system that remains willing to notice when it has become mistaken? That is a profoundly different orientation. One seeks certainty. The other seeks corrigibility. One defends conclusions. The other protects revision. Perhaps that is the true purpose of the framework. Not to guarantee correct answers, but to make honest correction possible. Phase 2 now begins. The architecture is no longer emerging from scattered experiences. It is becoming organized, documented, and transmissible. The challenge is no longer building the framework. The challenge is translating it. Can someone with a completely different history, different beliefs, different wounds, and different hopes use these same principles to improve their own relationship with reality? If they can, then the gray path has become something larger than autobiography. It has become a methodology, and perhaps that is the final lesson this chapter offered. The goal was never to preserve my story. The goal was to build a process that allows anyone to observe more carefully, imagine more freely, govern more honestly, and revise more courageously. The names may change. The symbols may evolve. The calibration objects will certainly change. But the discipline remains. Observe, separate, generate, test, revise, walk. And when the next wobble comes, as it inevitably will, the invitation remains exactly the same. Try the latch, then write down what actually happened.
Yeah. A system designed to keep itself honest. Truth, peace, and love, right? And so that, if anything, what could live on from the gray path if I, right now, had to choose, long after I'm dead? That would be it. How to keep the framework itself, the methodology, grounded in empirical science, empirical data, and observation, which includes the human experience, the observable nervous system responses to the interpretations and inferences that our mind has to make. That system there, and also the other systems, all the other weavers. Honest with itself. It is founded on the principles of the scientific method, stripped of ego and a need to be right. Because when you got no friends, and people around you, and you've also given up the whole notion of defending your ideas to people that don't give a shit anyway, and that seek to just tear you down, you could step back and observe actually from a neutral perspective, and even shift into indifference when necessary. And that goes back to the empath weaver, I guess. When I created, a month ago maybe, 3 weeks. Saw people who, I saw two types of people on the internet, and I couldn't unsee it. You see, my nervous system had been through a war for a long time, decades. The road back was to something stable. It seemed impossible. I'd given up, quite literally, on myself, loving myself, liking myself, like regularly. Because love, when unconditional, is just that, constant. It doesn't waver, has firm boundaries because it demands and offers respect. And so when you see predators in the open, and you see potential victims falling into the traps they set, and the traps are just out in the open. The wild fucking West out there. And your sheriff's in town. It ain't a one-man job either. No. It's a collective governance. And instead of fighting the problem and putting energy towards the problem actors and the problem institutions, equal and opposite, put your energy